They say one man's trash is another man's treasure. After seeing what some Americans try to sell online, I'm convinced it's just a race to see who can monetize their own delusion first. We've bypassed the dusty couches and broken lawnmowers to bring you the listings that exist in a reality all their own. From celebrity chewed gum to gently used coffins, this is the side of e-commerce they don't want you to see, and the side you won't be able to look away from. 1. Forget snake oil and miracle creams. Apparently, the secret to eternal health was once available on Craigslist, and it came in a brine-soaked jar. Someone listed a jar of pickles with the modest claim, guaranteed to cure any ailment. Now, before you dismiss this, consider the source of its power. These weren't just any pickles. They were personally blessed by an old man in Alabama who saw Bigfoot once. For a mere $5, this potent vegetable remedy could be yours. You have to wonder if seeing a mythical ape grants you a doctorate in pickle-based medicine. Does it cure a headache? Or can it tackle more serious issues like a broken transmission or a loveless marriage? For $5, who isn't willing to find out? 2. We all know Six Flags is expensive, but one visionary decided to bring the amusement park to their own backyard. On Craigslist, they listed a DIY roller coaster, a term I use loosely, as it was constructed from shopping carts and wooden planks. The seller described this death trap as thrilling but slightly dangerous, which is the kind of understatement you'd expect from someone who thinks a shopping cart can handle a 45-degree drop. They also casually mentioned that helmets are strongly recommended but not included, basically translating to, "I've built a lawsuit machine, and your skull's integrity is your own problem." It's the perfect attraction for people whose bucket list includes a concussion. 3. Some things in life are just inherently terrifying. Spiders, public speaking, and apparently a wax figure of Danny DeVito. A seller posted an ad for an uncannily realistic wax replica of the actor, complete with a disheveled suit. As if the photo wasn't enough to give you night terrors, the description included the chillingly simple warning: unsettling at night. Buddy, let's be honest. That thing is unsettling in broad daylight, at a child's birthday party, during a solar eclipse. Imagine stumbling into your kitchen for a midnight snack, only to see those glassy eyes staring back from the shadows. You wouldn't just sell it. You'd probably need an exorcist and a new house. 4. If you've ever felt the sting of loneliness, one Craigslist user had the perfect, albeit two-dimensional solution: a life-size cardboard cutout of a man named Greg. The listing read like a eulogy for a dear friend. This is Greg. Greg is 6'1", slightly faded, and has a calming presence. It then detailed Greg's impressive social resume, including weddings and camping trips. The seller was moving and couldn't take him. The best part? Serious inquiries only. Because you don't just buy Greg, you adopt him. You're taking on the responsibility of a silent, papery companion who has seen more of the world than some actual living people. What a legacy. 5. So let's say a life-size alien statue materializes in your backyard. A normal person's reaction might involve calling NASA, the police, or at least a therapist. But for one Craigslist seller, the first thought was, I wonder how much I can get for this. Instead of pondering the cosmic implications of their new lawn decor, they immediately listed it online. This is peak entrepreneurial spirit. Why wrestle with the profound question of whether we are alone in the universe when you can flip an unexplained extraterrestrial effigy for a quick profit? It's a bold strategy that says, I'm not here for answers, I'm here for cash. 6. In the world of high art, a urinal can be a masterpiece and a blank canvas can be worth millions. So, why can't a melted garden gnome be one too? A seller on Craigslist listed what was clearly a casualty of a summer heatwave as abstract modern art and slapped a $75 price tag on it. They didn't mention an unfortunate accident. No, this was a deliberate artistic statement. You have to admire the sheer audacity. It's not a melted gnome. It's a commentary on the fragility of suburban kitsch in the face of global warming. Or maybe it's just a melted gnome and they're hoping someone with more money than sense comes along. 7. Have you ever felt like your home was missing something but you just couldn't put your finger on it? Perhaps what you needed was a door, and absolutely nothing else. Someone was literally selling a single unattached door, advertised as a great conversation piece or the key to an incredible practical joke. Imagine the sheer power of installing this in the middle of your lawn. It's a portal to nowhere, a statement of defiance against the very concept of architecture. It's the kind of purchase that tells your neighbors, I'm not just weird, I'm artistically and profoundly weird. It's not just a door, it's a threat. 8. While some people dedicate their lives to collecting fine art or vintage cars, one Craigslist hero devoted themselves to a much nobler cause, bottle caps. They listed a massive collection of 378 caps, proudly noting there were no duplicates. The description was penned with the reverence of a museum curator. Every single cap has a story. Some were pried off with sheer determination. This wasn't just a sale, it was the passing of a torch. The seller was adamant, will not split the set. Buyer must appreciate the art of bottle cap collecting. You weren't just buying a Ziploc bag full of metal discs. You were becoming the sole heir to a legacy of carbonation and questionable life choices. 9. In the world of risky online purchases, you have things like gently used electronics or a car with a minor engine noise. And then you have this gem, a used parachute, described with the bone-chilling phrase, mostly reliable. The seller, clearly a master of salesmanship, tried to reassure potential buyers that it worked fine last time. This raises the immediate and rather important question. Is the person who used it last time the one selling it? Or are they unavailable for comment? The ad's glorious finale was the simple, 3-word sentence, no refunds. That's not a red flag. That's a full-blown, screaming siren, end-of-the-world warning sign. 10. We've all seen modern art and thought, my kid could do that. Well, someone on Craigslist took that idea and ran with it, listing a set of Legos that had been permanently glued together as modern art. Let's call this what it is, a child's tantrum, immortalized in plastic and superglue, now being sold for $200. You have to respect the hustle. This wasn't just a failed attempt at building the Millennium Falcon. It was a sculptural commentary on the permanence of childhood frustration. Or more likely, their kid made a mess, and they decided to see if some artsy type would be foolish enough to pay their rent for it. 11. If you've ever wanted to give your house guests a near-death experience, one Craigslist seller had the perfect home accessory for you. A life-size statue of Dobby from the Harry Potter series. The description proudly stated its primary function: freaks out house guests. Perfect for fans or pranks. They're not wrong. Imagine walking into a dimly lit room and seeing those massive, soulful eyes staring at you from the corner. It's a one-way ticket to a heart attack. This isn't just a decorative item, it's a psychological weapon. It's for the kind of person who hears a guest scream in terror and thinks, ah, mission accomplished. 12. Every home needs a good conversation starter. Maybe it's a beautiful painting, a rare book, or if you're a certain Craigslist seller, a taxidermied raccoon clutching a miniature can of beer. The seller advertised it as exactly that, a conversation starter. And you know what? They're absolutely right. The conversation would likely begin with, "What in God's name is that?" and quickly evolve into, "Seriously, why do you own a stuffed alcoholic raccoon?" You can't just put that on your mantelpiece and not have a bizarre backstory for it. Did he have a name? Was he the life of the party before his untimely demise? We need answers. 13. For anyone with a lingering childhood fear of animatronics, this next listing is pure nightmare fuel. Someone was selling a fully operational life-size Chuck E. Cheese band. As if that wasn't terrifying enough on its own, the ad contained a sentence that could have been ripped from a horror movie script. It claimed the band still played music, but only when it wants to. Oh, good. So not only do you have a robotic rat band in your garage, but it's also sentient and probably plotting against you. Imagine waking up at 3 a.m. to the tinny, demonic sound of a robot dog singing a song about pizza. That's not a collectible. It's a haunting. 14. You know what the problem with regular fruit bowls is? They're just not dramatic enough. At least that's the problem one Craigslist seller aimed to solve by listing a working guillotine, specifically for cutting fruit dramatically. They even went out of their way to add a helpful little disclaimer. It was technically functional for other things, but let's not go there. I appreciate them clearing that up. You know your product is intense when you have to explicitly advise customers not to use it for its original, state-sanctioned purpose. It's the perfect kitchen gadget for when you want to slice a watermelon and also make your dinner guests deeply, deeply uncomfortable. 15. We've all heard of relationships ending over finances or infidelity. But one Craigslist ad told a far more tragic tale of a love triangle involving a man, his wife, and a gigantic stuffed bear. The listing was for the bear, which apparently takes up too much space in my marriage. The seller elaborated that the bear was so massive, it occupied half their bed, leading the spouse to issue an ultimatum: "It's me or the bear." You have to feel for the guy. He was forced to choose between the love of his life and a plush behemoth. Let's hope the bear found a new home where it could be loved without destroying a sacred union. 16. In a world saturated with landscapes and portraits, one artist on Craigslist dared to be different. They were selling a large dramatic oil painting of a potato. The description was insistent: not a basket of potatoes, not a farm scene, just one single, gloriously detailed potato. This wasn't just a painting, it was an ode to the humble spud, a masterpiece of starch and soil. The ad concluded with the requirement that the buyer must have refined taste. They're not just selling you a picture of a potato, they're selling you an identity as a sophisticated connoisseur of root vegetable art. And frankly, that's a power move. 17. Haunted dolls are cliché. Haunted houses are expensive. But a haunted DVD of Shrek 2? Now that's a niche market. A seller claimed they were parting with a copy of the animated classic because it was possessed. According to the ad, every time they played it, all the audio would vanish except for Donkey's voice. Imagine trying to follow the emotional arc of Shrek and Fiona's journey, but the only sound you hear is Eddie Murphy making waffle-related jokes for 90 minutes straight. The seller saw it as a curse, but let's be honest, that sounds less like a haunting and more like the greatest special edition version of a movie ever made. 18. If you've ever looked at a chicken and thought, that bird just seems to be lacking in self-worth, then this Craigslist ad was for you. Someone was selling a golden retriever costume, designed specifically for a chicken. The seller's rationale was that it would make the chicken feel more confident. This opens up a whole world of questions about poultry psychology. Do chickens suffer from social anxiety? Is there a pecking order based on who has the best fursona? I love the idea of a flock of chickens, but one of them is just strutting around, wagging a fake tail, finally feeling like it belongs. This isn't a costume, it's therapy. 19. You know, when you're trying to get rid of something suspicious, the golden rule is to be cool. This seller did not get the memo. They listed a single glove with the simple yet deafeningly loud description: definitely not involved in any crimes. That's it. No other details. Not the size, not the material, not even if it's a righty or a lefty. Just a frantic, sweaty-palmed assurance of its pristine legal record. This is the online equivalent of someone walking into a police station unprompted and shouting, "I didn't do it!" The sheer lack of any other information makes it 10 times more incriminating. You're not buying a glove, you're buying a piece of evidence. 20. If you're a gambler at heart, this Craigslist ad was the ultimate high-stakes bet. A seller listed a mystery vending machine for $100, but there was a catch. It came with no key, and they had absolutely no idea what was inside. Just think of the possibilities. It could be a treasure trove of vintage snacks, preserved like tiny, sugary time capsules. It could be packed with quarters, a small but satisfying return on your investment. Or it could contain something far more sinister, like a cursed artifact or the portal to a dimension where soda is free but tastes like regret. For $100, you're buying a Schrodinger's box of snacks. 21. Some online listings tell a story. This one told a 3-word tragedy. The item was a gently used wedding ring, and the entire description was just, mistakes were made. No other explanation, no dramatic monologue about love lost, just the cold, hard finality of that statement. It's both hilarious and heartbreaking. You can practically feel the weight of 1,000 unspoken arguments behind those words. This isn't just a piece of jewelry, it's a monument to a spectacular failure. A tiny golden circle that represents a very, very bad decision. You're not just buying a ring, you're buying the ghost of a failed marriage. 22. There are some things you just shouldn't buy secondhand. Underwear, toothbrushes, and at the absolute top of that list, dentures. Yet one brave seller listed a set of false teeth, described as only worn twice. First of all, let's be clear. Twice is precisely 2 times too many. Second, who is the target market for this? Are there people out there bargain hunting for pre-chewed teeth? The thought of putting a stranger's molars in your mouth is enough to make you swear off smiling forever. Some deals just aren't worth the savings or the inevitable haunting that comes with wearing someone else's smile. 23. While one seller offered a mystery vending machine, another took the concept to a much darker place. For just $10, you could purchase a mystery box with a truly terrifying promise. Its contents will haunt you forever. The seller flat out refused to reveal what was inside, but guaranteed it was something you'll never forget. To top it all off, the ad ended with a chilling trifecta of finality. No returns, no takebacks, no mercy. This is less of a purchase and more of a life-altering curse you willingly pay for. What could possibly be in there? A single cursed photograph? The world's ugliest figurine? A bill for services rendered from a demon? 24. If you've ever thought the bottled water industry was a scam, get ready for the next level. A seller in Colorado listed a bag of rare air for $250. The description was pure marketing genius. Bottled on a crisp mountain morning. Breathe in the adventure. This raises so many logistical questions. How do you even consume it? Do you open the bag and take one deep, expensive breath? Or do you savor it over time, taking tiny, luxurious sniffs like it's a fine brandy? You have to admire the sheer audacity of selling something that is literally everywhere for free. It's not just air, it's an experience. A very, very expensive experience. 25. We've all dreamed of flying, but most of us aren't brave or foolish enough to strap on a homemade jetpack. For those who are, Craigslist had the perfect offer, a jetpack that works, kind of. The seller admitted that it did in fact generate lift, but only for about 5 seconds before things got unstable. The term unstable, when you're several feet off the ground, attached to a canister of flammable fuel is, to put it mildly, concerning. This isn't a vehicle. It's a 5-second-long controlled explosion. Who buys this? Is there a thriving community of daredevils who consider a near-death experience a successful test flight? 26. Every cat owner knows that their feline is the true ruler of the house. One seller decided to make it official by commissioning a medieval-style wooden throne, built to cat-sized perfection. The problem? As the ad lamented, their cat never used it because he prefers the floor like some kind of peasant. The listing even included a tiny, unused royal cushion. This is the most relatable pet owner struggle in history. You can provide your furry overlord with the finest luxuries, but at the end of the day, they will always choose the cardboard box you were about to throw out. It's a beautiful, handcrafted monument to feline indifference. 27. Looking for a new home with a little extra security? Someone in Kansas listed a decommissioned missile silo that had been converted into an underground luxury home. For a cool $3 million, you could be the proud owner of the ultimate doomsday bunker. It came with everything you'd need to survive the apocalypse, including reinforced blast doors, 18-inch thick concrete walls, and a surprisingly nice living room. It's the perfect blend of Cold War paranoia and modern interior design. You can sip a martini by the fireplace, comforted by the knowledge that you could withstand a direct nuclear strike. Is it insane, or is it just practical? 28. Parrots are known for their ability to mimic human speech, which can be charming. Or, in this case, it can be a problem. An owner was forced to rehome their parrot because it knows too many curse words. Apparently, the bird had been listening in on arguments and had developed an impressive vocabulary of profanity. The ad claimed the parrot could roast you harder than your worst enemy. Frankly, that sounds less like a flaw and more like a premium feature. You're not just getting a pet. You're getting a feathered flying insult comic who can provide you with brutally honest feedback, whether you want it or not. 29. You can sell almost anything on Craigslist. Furniture, cars, and even apparently your imaginary friends. A man in Florida listed his loyal imaginary friend for $99. The description was a glowing review, calling him great company and decent at poker, but noted a significant flaw. He was absolutely terrible at splitting rent. As if this wasn't bizarre enough, the post ended with a firm, "Serious inquiries only." You have to wonder what a serious inquiry for an imaginary friend even looks like. Do you have to interview him? Is there a trial period? Does he come with his own imaginary baggage? 30. People see divine images in toast and clouds, and for one Craigslist seller, in a potato chip. They listed a single, slightly greasy salt and vinegar chip that they claimed was shaped exactly like Elvis Presley's face. Describing it as a divine rock and roll intervention, they priced this miraculous snack at $1,000. Let's be real for a moment. That's a lot of money for something that has a shelf life of about 2 weeks before it becomes a sad, stale relic. It forces you to ask a deep, philosophical question. How much is a greasy, edible piece of the king really worth? 31. There are certain used items that come with a bit of baggage. And then there's a slightly used coffin. A seller in New York tried to offload one, reassuring potential buyers that it had only been used once for a photo shoot. I'm not sure if that's better or worse. That one-time use opens a Pandora's box of questions. What kind of photo shoot requires a coffin? Was it for a goth band's album cover? A vampire-themed fashion spread? And most importantly, do you really want to be the second person to lie down in it? It's a tough sell, even for the most budget-conscious goth. 32. When the apocalypse comes, you'll want to be prepared. For one seller, preparation meant building a full suit of armor made entirely out of duct tape. Their ad described the handcrafted suit as surprisingly flexible. But the best part was the honest assessment of its defensive capabilities. The seller admitted it. Probably won't stop a sword, but will make you look cool in a parking lot duel. At least they're managing expectations. This isn't for actual combat. This is for looking intimidating while you argue over a parking space. It's the perfect blend of medieval fantasy and modern-day practicality. 33. In the world of high-stakes collectibles, anything can be valuable if you find the right buyer. One person decided to test that theory by listing a single cornflake that they claimed bore a striking resemblance to the state of Texas. For this one-of-a-kind collectible, they were asking a cool $200. You have to admire the confidence. They didn't just see a random piece of breakfast cereal. They saw a cartographical masterpiece, a crunchy tribute to the Lone Star State. While there were no immediate buyers, you just know there's a cereal enthusiast out there somewhere, counting their pennies, ready to make the investment of a lifetime. 34. For the discerning modern warrior, or perhaps just a very serious cosplayer, Craigslist offered a full suit of cold metallic armor. The ad boldly declared it was ready for battle or cosplay, covering both medieval warfare and a weekend at Comic-Con. However, the seller included a crucial, albeit hilarious disclaimer. They had never actually tested it in a real fight. That's like selling a parachute and noting it's never been used in an actual jump. It's a pretty significant product feature to leave to the buyer's imagination. You're not just buying armor, you're buying the honor of being the very first person to find out if it can stop a sword. What a privilege. 35. If you've ever gotten tired of living in this boring, linear timeline, one Craigslist ad was looking for you. A self-proclaimed time traveler was seeking a companion for an upcoming mission. The qualifications were simple. You had to be adventurous, understand the basic rules of paradoxes, and most importantly, you must bring their own snacks. You can apparently bend the very fabric of space-time, but you can't spring for a bag of chips for your companion. The ad also noted a preference for those who don't ask too many questions, which is exactly what you want to hear before stepping into a machine that could accidentally erase you from existence. 36. Some things just defy logic, physics, and basic definitions. Case in point, a Craigslist ad for a 3-wheeled unicycle. I had to read that twice. A unicycle, by its very name, implies the presence of one singular wheel. Adding 2 more wheels to it doesn't make it a revolutionary new invention. It makes it a tricycle. This isn't innovation, it's just a tricycle with an identity crisis. It's the perfect vehicle for someone who wants the instability and awkwardness of a unicycle combined with the comforting yet completely contradictory presence of training wheels. It's a paradox on wheels, 3 of them. 37. Every homeowner dreams of having a well-manicured lawn, a white picket fence, and a functional medieval catapult. One seller offered a home-built siege engine, described as functional but untested. So, in other words, it's a very large, very dangerous pile of wood that might work. The ad helpfully suggested it was great for launching pumpkins or settling neighborhood disputes. You have to appreciate the versatility. One day you're having a festive autumn celebration. The next you're launching a gourd at Dave's house because he hasn't returned your lawnmower. It's the ultimate tool for passive-aggressive suburban warfare. 38. We all know the dryer is a portal to another dimension that eats one sock from every pair. Well, one Craigslist ad might just be the first documented proof. Someone listed a single lonely sock with a handwritten note attached that read, "If found, return to another dimension." There was no other context. Is this the work of a prankster, or did someone genuinely receive an interdimensional piece of laundry by mistake? You have to wonder what the delivery service is like between our world and the sock dimension. Do they use wormholes? And more importantly, does my other sock miss its friend? 39. Wedding planning is stressful, and it's always good to have a backup plan. But one bride took this concept to a whole new level. She was selling a set of 3 identical wedding dresses, explaining in the ad that she bought the same gown 3 times. Just in case. Just in case of what exactly? A sudden, simultaneous attack by a mud puddle, a red wine spill, and a flock of angry birds? What kind of high-stakes action movie wedding was she planning where she might need 2 complete replacements for her dress? It sounds less like a marriage ceremony and more like a final boss battle. 40. If you thought the pet rock craze of the 70s was weird, you'll be delighted to know its legacy lives on. Someone on Craigslist listed a vintage pet rock training manual, which promised to teach you how to get your rock to master complex tricks like stay and exist. The real selling point, however, was that this copy was personally autographed by the author. The seller insisted the book had genuinely changed their life. I can only imagine how. Did it teach them the profound beauty of stillness? Or did it just teach them that you can sell literally anything if you write a manual for it? 41. For the aspiring sea captain on a budget, one Craigslist ad offered a tantalizing opportunity: a home-built submarine. While the craftsmanship looked rustic, the most concerning part was in the description. The seller described their underwater vessel as being able to mostly float. Mostly. That is arguably the worst word you could possibly use to describe the buoyancy of a submarine. I want my submarine to always float, or aggressively float. Mostly implies there's a certain percentage of the time where it does the opposite of floating, which is, of course, sinking. That's not a submarine. That's an anxiety machine. 42. A slightly used time machine with a major flaw. The seller in Oregon listed a homemade contraption of wires, a car battery, and an old microwave, claiming it was a time machine. The price was a reasonable $500. However, the description noted a small issue. It only travels forward in time, at the normal speed of 1 second per second, but it looks impressive. So for $500, you could buy a very complicated and slightly dangerous clock. At least they were honest about its performance. 43. A haunted mirror that's just brutally honest. Forget ghosts or demons. This seller listed a vintage mirror claiming it was haunted by a spirit that doesn't spook you, but just subtly criticizes you. The description read, "It won't show you specters, but it will reflect a version of you that looks slightly more tired and disappointed than you actually are." For $50, you could own a paranormal object that doubles as a source of constant, low-grade existential dread. Perfect for motivation or a complete breakdown. 44. Home security systems are great, but do they have character? Do they have a tiny sword? One seller offered a unique alternative: a one-eyed taxidermy squirrel, frozen in an eternal battle pose, clutching a miniature sword. The ad marketed it as great for medieval-themed decor or scaring off burglars. And honestly, they're not wrong. If you broke into a house in the dead of night and the first thing you saw was a one-eyed, sword-wielding squirrel staring you down, you wouldn't steal the TV. You'd turn around, leave, and probably reconsider all of your life choices. 45. Are we alone in the universe? For a small price, one Craigslist seller offered a device to answer that question: a homemade UFO detector. The creator promised it could sense alien activity within a 50-mile radius and had been tested multiple times with no false alarms. That sounds impressive, until you get to the fine print. When a potential buyer asked if it had ever actually detected a UFO, the seller replied, "Not yet, but that just means it's working." That is a level of marketing confidence I can only dream of. The lack of results is presented as proof of its effectiveness. It's genius. 46. In times of stress, people turn to many things for comfort: a warm blanket, a good book, or, according to one Craigslist ad, a giant block of cheese. Someone was selling what they had affectionately labeled emotional support cheddar. The post was surprisingly heartfelt, reassuring buyers that while the cheese couldn't offer licensed therapy, it could serve as a comforting presence in difficult times. And you know what? That's the most relatable thing I've ever heard. There are very few problems in life that can't be made at least a little bit better by the presence of a massive, unyielding block of cheddar. 47. There are hobbies, and then there are biological hazards. This listing falls firmly into the second category. Someone was selling a jar of their own toenail clippings, which they had been diligently collecting for over 10 years. The ads suggested they were great for witchcraft, DNA experiments, or gross-out pranks. I am less concerned with the suggested uses and more with the origin story. Who wakes up one day and thinks, "I should save this nail clipping and every single one after it for a decade"? And the scarier question, who is the target market for this? Craigslist. Some questions are better left unanswered. 48. Move over Virgin Mary on a piece of toast. The new face of divine apparitions in food is presidential. A seller listed a single chicken nugget that they claimed bore an uncanny resemblance to George Washington, our first president. For this most historically significant nugget ever found, they were asking $150. You have to squint a little, but you can kind of see the powdered wig and stoic expression. It's the perfect collectible for someone who loves both American history and deep-fried processed chicken. It's what the Founding Fathers would have wanted. 49. Parting with a collection can be tough, especially when you're emotionally invested. One seller made that abundantly clear when they listed their lawn flamingo collection, describing themselves as emotionally attached but willing to sell. This wasn't just a flock of plastic birds. It was a family. The seller had named all 37 flamingos and even wrote a detailed backstory for each one. The highlight was Gerald, the fearless leader who once survived a tornado. You're not just buying lawn ornaments, you're adopting a group of battle-hardened plastic veterans. And you better treat Gerald with the respect he deserves. And there you have it. 49 arguments for why the internet was probably a mistake. Now, it's time for some group therapy. Down in the comments, I want you to confess. Which of these ridiculous items did you secretly think was a good idea? Don't lie. Was it the emotional support band-aids? The personalized awkward silence? There's no judgment here. Okay, maybe a little. If you enjoy questioning humanity alongside me, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like so the algorithm knows you have excellent, if questionable, taste.